I've realized indigenous films, I mean, really truly good indigenous films, not BS like Killers of Flower Moon or like that latest from Tom Hanks looks like it's going to be, but real films that treat their indigenous people in them like valid and as people and their stories and concerns and lives as valid. Um, I realized these films, as powerful and fulfilling as they were when I lived on the res, they're so much more outside of the res. I just got back from seeing So Surreal Behind the Masks, made by Neil Diamond, a filmmaker who also made another movie that really means a lot to me. Real Injun. It's how indigenous people have been portrayed in films and media stereotypically. I feel like he could like just pick up and like make a sequel, like. But anyway, So Surreal is about these Yupik and Kwakwawak ceremonial masks that Canada seized and sold to art dealers and collector dealers, whatever, after declaring the potlatch ceremony illegal. And a lot of them got collected by surrealists, and the majority of the film is about like just the incredible Nana Bojoian efforts that the Yupik and Kawak people are going through right now, have gone through and are still going through to get them back. Like it's really amazing. Both of my favorite insights in the film were made by one of the Yupik elders named Chuna, who first said they were talking about the surrealists wanted these masks and drew a lot of inspiration from them towards their own artwork after purchasing them, because he said a ceremonial mask is a tangible thing made out of an intangible idea, which just floored me. It still kind of does. It was so good as like a summation of just the indigenous craft makers' efforts effect on surrealists as artists. Like, it's just so like succinct and insightful and pithy and clever. And then the second thing was after the Louvre and the Guggenheim kindly let them know they'd be keeping the masks that each of them had in their collection, and he and Neil Diamond were kind of lamenting it. They also went on to kind of acknowledging how special these indigenous masks and crafts work, and how their value at first was only kind of seen because European artists liked them and bought them and owned them and owned them. I mean, I need parentheses around like half of the words I'm using, unfortunately, for this, but and took inspiration from them. But now they're like legit seen as comparable crafts and importance and work and inspiring things. Then after, a beat of silence, Chuna went on to say, he said, they went for them because we Indigenous people are so real. That moved me too. It felt like a complete dispute of this presumption that all Indians are dead garbage that I still fucking encounter even today, sometimes. Not as often, but sometimes. And also this, that I encounter far more often, silent, omnipresent kind of thing that's like, you won't be able to hold out with being Ojibwe forever. It feels like it's all around me all the time. So I'm very glad I got to experience that today, as well as recording the filmmakers introduction and Q&A before and after the film, even though I'm worried I may have annoyed filmmaker Neil Diamond for doing that. There's a little possibly passive-aggressive comments about people filming everything on their phones. So worth it though, because now I can watch it again. Anyway, miigwech.
Hello everyone, and welcome to day 8 of the 49th Annual Toronto International Film Festival. I'm Kelly Boutsalis. I'm one of the Canadian programmers here at TIFF, and it is my absolute delight to welcome you to the screening of So Surreal, Behind the Masks. Before I bring up our special, the special guests are sneaking on. You can.
No.
Oh, okay. I'd like to give a sincere thank you to our presenting sponsor, Rogers, and our major sponsors, RBC and Visa, for their continued support. We would like to thank our government supporters, the Government of Ontario, Telefilm, and the City of Toronto. The TIFF Docs program is made possible through the generous sponsorship of A&E Indie Films. This film is also eligible for the Best Canadian Feature Film Award presented by Canada Goose, the People's Choice Award presented by Rogers, and the People's Choice Documentary Award presented by Rogers. Vote for your favorite films at tiff.net/vote. We would like to thank Resolution Pictures Inc. for providing us with this film. Now, please welcome directors Neil Diamond and Joanne Robertson.
Thank you. First of all, thank you all for coming today. It's a real honor for us to be here, to be showing So Surreal Behind the Masks at TIFF. So thank you all for coming out on a Thursday to be part of this premiere of our film. So we just wanted to start by thanking members from the Kwakwaka'wakw and Yupik communities with whom we've collaborated very closely on this film, and they've shared their stories, their knowledge, and their guidance throughout, and you'll get to meet them on the screen. Unfortunately, they're not here, but they will be here at future screenings, and we look forward to sharing the film with them. But we've been in touch with them since the other night and telling them the excitement around the film and the response, and they're very much with us in that respect. We want to thank TIFF for inviting us. Thank you to Kelly for your warm welcome. It's really exciting for us to be here, as I mentioned, and it's a real honor. We also just wanted to acknowledge crew who are part of the team here. It's been really a journey of incredible collaborations on a creative level, but also producing. I want to acknowledge, first of all, Daniel Morin, who's our producer, who's in the crowd. There he is, and Danielle has done just a really incredible job putting the teams together, helping us make it happen. And our editor, Rebecca Lessard, who does magic in the edit suite. We've collaborated with Rebecca on other projects, and just want to say that you're amazing, and amazing person, and amazing editor. And also Rebecca's done a lot of visual research for the film, and also some writing, so you'll get to meet her through that way in the film. We also want to thank our funders. without whom, of course, we wouldn't be here. We wanted to start by thanking the CBC Doc Channel and Sandra Kleinfeld and Nick Maloney, who've been so amazing and really great collaborators. Radio Canada, Rogers and Robin Mirsky, the Canadian Media Fund, the Bell Fund, and we also wanted to really give a huge shout out to the Indigenous Screen Office, who have been so supportive of the film, and it's an exciting year to be here and connected to the ISO in that way. And we also wanted to thank, lastly, just all of the incredible people who are working at TIFF, who've been so on their game, really at every single step. And we've been collaborating also closely with folks at GAT PR, and they've been really helpful, Catherine and Ingrid. So that's it for me, and enjoy the film, and I'll pass over to Neil. You've got your mic.
They give me
Go
my
for it.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming. And thank you to everybody at TIFF. You know, as filmmakers, can you hear me? As filmmakers, we try to make our films as easy to understand, to entertain, and to teach. But I think we failed because they scheduled a Q&A, so we don't have it for it. So we'll be here for that. Thank you.
Asking you to a couple of questions and then throwing it to the audience. But I found it to be so incredible that you trace that journey of those masks to the original homes and beyond. Can you take us through what that research looked like?
Well, it was just like a lot of documentary storytelling. There were a lot of rabbit holes. I think, Neil, that sort of initial experience at TIFF in New York, where we see that Yupik mask that was owned in the hands of Donati, the surrealist. That was actually a Donald Ellis. It was actually his stand at TIFF. And so I think just that whole journey was really just making connections then to the Yupik community through Tuna McIntyre and others. And then that also at the same time, we were making contacts with people in Kwakwaka'wakw territory, so in Alert Bay and Unista Cultural Center. And so it was really such a combination of things, like looking at art catalogs, talking to people in museums, talking with folks in the people in communities, like really trying to piece together sort of these stories. There are some masks that are easier than others, obviously. There's a lot of masks, like I know even in for the Unista Cultural Center, Juanita Johnson told us a story that recently they found a piece from the Potlatch collection in the Museum of Canadian History in Ottawa that had been mislabeled, and they only found it really recently. So there's all sorts of kind of different rabbit holes and stories, but in terms of our filmmaking journey, there was a lot of conversations with different people in different places. Yeah, it's not a straight line for sure.
Actually, a person asked me, who are the heirs for Barbara Dutuis, and what's going to happen to that mask when she passes? So it's going to pass into someone else's hands, and the mystery
Continue on its journey.
The plot thickens.
Or part two of the documentary.
Part two, absolutely. Yeah.
And then alongside of the people from the communities and the cultural centers, how did you piece together all of these archivists and researchers who wanted to take part in the film?
Well, Rebecca, are you here?
She is.
Rebecca Assad, our editor, is a brilliant researcher, so she found a lot of the
the visual archivals. So it was through some of those people who we interviewed, who you see in the film, like Marie Mosé, Fabrice Flautez, people who have these books. Like these people, my world has been turned upside down by art catalogs, paper, right? And going back and files and people, you go into some of these places, like we see Roberto Mata's house. There are, to this day, his house was actually pretty much closed to the public for the past over 20 years. And researchers are now going into the house and finding these huge piles of letters, of documents that will really help, I think, flesh out a lot of these histories. But most people are really keen on, wouldn't you say, like sharing their stories and like being interested in these kind of conversations, I think.
Yeah, the Yupik and the Kwakwaka'wakw people are, you know, they want the world to know,
Yeah.
you know, what happened in,
Yeah.
in their communities.
Yeah.
Because, well, especially the Kwakwaka'wakw, you know, their objects were just stolen from them. And these belong to families who are still, you know, who are still alive today. And these are, imagine if you're an heirloom that you had, you know, family heirloom was stolen.
Yeah. And I want to say too, just quickly, that like people like Juanita Johnson and her team at UMISTA, like, you know, there really are art detectives. And actually that's a whole thing too, which is a whole other film, is art detectives, but they are very much art detectives, like just piecing together, going to art, you know, going through these catalogs, having people out in the field who kind of keep an eye, who know these pieces and who can flag things for them. Like, it's a very fascinating, very rabbit hole, but very, very fascinating kind of area, for sure.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Right there.
Stunning. It's just a stunning film. It made with such dignity and no anger. It's incredible. My question is, how did you attempt to contact the owner of the mask for the film?
The so-called owner?
The so-called owner. Sorry. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, but we did a real stakeout, so it was a real.
Yeah. We did. Yeah.
It's a real detective thing. We were there for a couple hours and just watching the address.
Once we found out where she
Yeah.
lived.
And the private detective actually did a really quick job with it too.
For sure.
But she's well known, I think, in socialite circles in New York. So, and she's appeared in like newspapers and.
Yeah, she's a important philanthropist, and she's very involved with like the ASPCA in New York City. But, you know, I think one of the things that we really learned, like, wouldn't you say, like, is very much how these relationships are protected. So we were never able to have direct, we weren't able to get her email. We tried. A lot of people we know, even, you know, who have her email, wouldn't share it with us because they were like, sorry, but, you know, we want to kind of keep that relationship going, because in a lot of cases, they rely on her or that family to share, like, to lend, paint, because they have murals, like they've got, like, you know, it's the Matisse family, right? They're connected to them, so they have Matisse paintings, they have all sorts of things that they share, that they lend out. So there's a lot of like people who are really trying to protect their relationships. So we did actually, we're in touch with these Héritiers Matisse in Paris, and they're sort of a little bit like the gatekeepers, but it's not up to them, it's up to her. So, you know, it's and they don't have any, like as Neil was saying, they don't have any kids. So I think that was one thing that Juanita was really hoping for, is if they had children. One thing she said, which you don't hear in the film, is like, maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree, right? Maybe it needs to be this other generation, because Barbara is of this generation, but we don't know, like, why she's not answering. We have lots of theories, but a lot of people we spoke with also have theories and have direct connections to her, but
it's bad publicity, I think.
It's bad publicity. She could make it into good publicity. Yeah.
Do we have any other questions? Here.
I just want to thank you so much for making the film. And also, I hope there's a sequel.
That would be great.
Me too.
Yeah,
Would be really good.
A happy ending.
Yeah. Well, I think as the late Bill Cranmer says, you know, it's not over, right? And I think Don Ellis also says that. So fingers crossed that the story continues, for sure.
Yeah, maybe she knows the story. Maybe one day we get it back. I'm from France, so I
Oh,
it's like
fantastic.
my own.
Yes.
But I'm thinking maybe because she doesn't have kids or something, maybe one day, like, if she knows really
Yes.
the story, maybe she will give it to you. You never know.
Now
You
you have a
never-
connection from France.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. All the connections. Yeah, absolutely. Good. No, that's a really good point.
It's something,
Yep.
sometimes you get things. I have tried get cardboard for the girl, her
Yeah.
grandma for 100 years ago. I won't take it because it's too old. Because I live now here, but my friend, in France it's the way, like you keep your stuff all your life. It's not like here you let garage sale and you put it in. We don't have this kind of thing garage sale.
I think we also, yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, we didn't want to,
We get things and we
Yeah.
keep them.
for sure.
And if she doesn't have kids or something, then she knows really the story.
Yeah, no, I think we really,
We
hopefully that's clear in the film, like giving her that
just
benefit of the doubt.
put ads in a newspaper. You found a house, right? So maybe in area, you could just, you know what, we are looking for things.
Well, we were actually at one point in New York City going by a tarot card reader, I think, and we were like, we're gonna get Neil and film in with.
Yeah, we're gonna go like full spiritual,
Yeah.
New Age, and we actually went into
did.
a
I
tarot
did,
card
yeah.
reader, and we showed her a photograph of the mask.
Yeah, and she
right?
said she'd get back to us.
Yeah. That would have been funny. Imagine if she actually did locate it.
No stone left unturned.
And it's where the Olympic wear, right? Now, or what I saw is from Olympic wear. So the whole world.
You have another question?
What efforts you could make to make her see the film?
How can you make her see the film?
Yeah.
Are you planning on doing that?
Yeah.
Well, there is a Native American Film Festival in New York that's been held for
Yeah, they have a
few
series
years,
at
so
the
we can submit
NMAIA.
that and
Yeah,
send her a ticket.
yeah. Special invitation, hand
She'll
deliver.
sit right in front. Center.
Yes. Well, she could bring. Oh my gosh,
Oh,
could you
if
imagine?
she did that?
Yes.
We have to bring a camera.
Yeah, we'll have to bring a camera to film that for sure. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, thank you very much. This is just a fascinating film. I wanted to talk a little bit about the editing of the film, but in one sequence in particular, the Mona Lisa sequence where you use the Nat King Cole song of Mona Lisa over the kind of dance there. Now, did you decide in advance to do that, or did that come later through the editing? And I wasn't even sure how I felt about it, kind of superimposing
Sure.
Nat King Cole's voice
Yeah.
over
Actually, that whole
if you like,
scene
our
was
national treasures.
Yeah.
The search for our national treasures. So
Yeah,
just
it's
wondered
a
if
good
you could
question.
Talk about that, 'cause
Sure.
I actually found it very moving.
Yeah.
At the same time, and I'm sure I'll remember it as well.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that
nice.
scene?
Actually, that whole scene with the Mona Lisa and Tuna going there we just decided on the spur of the moment. We were filming with the masks, and someone mentioned, I forget who mentioned it, but the Mona Lisa was just in the next gallery, and he just happened to love it, and I love it too. I love the song, and so we just went there and started filming. Actually, the Louvre was closed to the general public at the time when we were filming there, and so we had a private audience with the Mona Lisa. Usually it's like tourists with iPhones holding it up and filming it for some reason. And I have this great photograph that I can show you of the crew, and they're all standing in front of the Mona Lisa. The Mona Lisa's back there, and they're all just like, you know, nobody's looking at the Mona Lisa. That's access.
Yeah, it's true. We had really good access that day. I think that's a really good question because it's something that, we did not plan that in advance. We filmed that, entrance of Tuna into the Louvre, to see the masks. And we did that in one take. I was saying the other night that, he was really clear about that. Like, it was a real collaboration with Tuna. We talked about things ahead of time. What does he feel comfortable with? he and Neil had, you know, they were on camera together. They had a great collaboration, I think. And then in terms of that, like then, you know, we have a moment afterwards where he dances, and there was the montage was of course done by Rebecca. And it's beautiful, and that was done in the edit. So but we knew that he loved the song. And we were saying the other night, you know, when we were preparing for the interview with Tuna in Paris, we did it in Paris, you know, he was there with he had brought all of these photos from back home of his grandparents and stuff, sitting on the floor, you know, there he was, and like, he was just listening to Mona Lisa Smile, right? Like, he was like, that was his thing. So when we were in the Louvre, he actually just spontaneously shared that with us. And so, you know, Rebecca beautifully, I think, you know, edited that together, and he's seen it and he loves it. So we would not have, I don't think we ever would have shown that unless Tuna had felt good about it. So just so you know, I think it's a really moving moment too, but I also think it's a really good question because, you know, we see a lot of stuff out there where there isn't that kind of context. So yeah, I think it's a good question, and I think it's a really I don't know if you have anything to say about
I love
that.
it. I love it.
Yeah.
But I was actually more excited to see a Caravaggio.
I think we only have time for a few more questions. Is there anyone who has one?
That's beautiful.
Merci beaucoup. There's a question here.
I just wonder, since you're dealing with two different jurisdictions, Alaska being United States and Canada, are there conflicting laws that you have to meander through as far as repatriation or?
We did have a chat with a lawyer who deals in repatriation, and they're two different monsters. So I don't remember the details, but it's harder to get works repatriated in Canada than the U.S. because the U.S. has.
The U.S. has new laws now, I think as of January 1st. NAGPRA, there are certain laws in place now that are, but in this case, because the potlatch collection was confiscated in 1921, it also does not follow under UNDRIP, which is, you know, the UN declaration in early 70s. So it's very complicated. I think it's a conversation that we actually, with Rebecca, we had a lot of conversations around how much detail do we go, because France has its own thing, you know, the United States has its own thing, Canada doesn't really have its own thing. Like, museums here have come together, and now they have sort of more kind of an understanding as a group of museums what they're going to do, but there are no laws in Canada that would oblige you to repatriate anything. So I don't want to get too detailed in it because I'm not an expert, and it's not something that we were able to really delve into in the film, but it's complicated. As Neil says, it's a complex beast.
Could be a good election
monster.
issue. Could be a good election issue as one's coming up.
Yes, well, there was an MP who we were in touch with at one point who was trying to pass something, and it just, for some ridiculous reason, just didn't get there because they had a recess or something. But yes, good point. Absolutely.
One last question here.
Just to add on to that, I suppose first I wanted to say I really enjoyed the documentary. I thought it was really beautifully done, so thank you so much. And I just came to it from an archaeological perspective, and I love the way that you talked about what's the difference between an artifact and art and an heirloom, really, you know, and it can be all of these things. So I just really appreciated how you made the conversation about repatriation more accessible, I guess, and you could say it's bigger than just asking for everything. It's also about having access to things, and it doesn't have to be the same thing. So thank you for that. I thought that was really well done.
Well, you mentioned artifact and art. I've traveled pretty much all across North America, and I've asked Native artists, filmmakers, anyone, academics, especially people who haven't lost their language, if there's a word for art in their language, and there's none.
All right. On that note, thank you so much for this, and I'm sure if you want to continue